Welcome to Let's Write This Movie, where we write a screenplay
while sharing the process with the internet.
I am your screenwriter, René Garcia.
And I'm your collaborator, Brian Glass.
Now, let's write this movie. Shake it.
I'm doing the shake and the thinking.
Yeah, do the thing. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Renee. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. My initial thought is I feel like this episode's a little forced or maybe premature.
Ooh.
That's where my mind is at right now.
Let's just stop now.
Okay. Throw the whole show away.
Please subscribe. Like and subscribe. This is our title show. Like the title's longer than the content.
I love it. Here's where I'm at. So,
all right.
Season 1, I already came into... we already had a lot of conversation before we started Season 1, before we started the project, right? Like, we knew what we wanted to do. I already had an idea that was more or less formed in my brain. I just needed the motivation to write it.
You had the big scenes already established in your brain.
Absolutely. And the the emotional connection, the desire to bring those things to life.
Right.
Where we're at now, at least as per our last conversation, is to do something that is work. An assignment, right? And I'm really not feeling it. Like, I thought about it over the week, and I was like, God, this sucks. Like, it's one thing. Here's the thing, Brian. And I know this might be like splitting hairs, and I hope I'm using that phrase correctly. No, it's not splitting hairs. It's me being like trying to be exculpatory, I guess. Like, why it makes sense for me to feel this way now, but if I actually had an assignment from a producer, why that would be different and I'd be willing to do it. That's what I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to rationalize. Okay. That's the word.
It's very easy to rationalize. You're not getting paid.
Yes!
It's easy.
Okay, well, I didn't know if that was obvious. I just wanted to put that out there. It's like...
That's why I started laughing.
So that's my lead-in to the story I want to tell. Like, okay. you know that I actually have a movie, right? I actually have a writing credit on an actual movie that was produced and filmed and, did the circuit of independent...
IMDb, baby.
That's what I'm saying. I'm in there, and I'm legit.
You are. Too legit to quit.
I did not... That is not my original script. I don't know if you remember this, Brian.
I do.
I was essentially a script doctor for that script.
Right.
And, it wasn't the best. It wasn't a story that inspired me necessarily. But because I knew that, there was real money behind this and there was a high likelihood that this movie was going to get made, I was glad to punch it up. And I just don't know that I can do that from scratch for the duration of, let's say it's, on the conservative end, it takes the same amount of time it took me to write this other movie that I already had, like, excitement to do.
I think we can call it Epitaph.
We can call what Epitaph?
The last movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rather than just, not have to be so obsequious about it. It's okay, man.
All right. Obsequious.
Would you like me to pay you for Epitaph and for the new movie? Is that what you're getting at?
No, Brian, that's not what I'm saying at all.
All right, I'll write you a check.
Well, if you could guarantee that this next movie would be made.
That sounded like a check, didn't it?
No, that doesn't sound like a check. That's like a check that had no preparation and that you didn't fold it enough. You just tore the check, because I've had those.
On one of those business books, dude.
What are you talking about? Those are even shorter, bro.
It's on my Let's Write This Movie business book.
Okay. So there you go, Brian. I don't know. I feel like I'm making excuses here, but I also know myself well enough that, I just don't think this is going to be a good time for anybody involved, including people who may watch these episodes. Like,
Did you go back and watch the last episode? You gave this whole, 5-minute explanation as to why this should be the right thing to do, which sounded pretty convincing.
Well, logically, but where's the desire? Where's the heart? And that has to be. What? Say that again?
That was my retort. You're not going to enjoy any of this.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that you're right. You're right. That's what I'm saying. And I've had time to think about it. And I wasn't intending to enjoy it, but then I thought, why am I a masochist? Am I just going to like suffer just to prove I can do this?
I took the point, and I don't know if we actually discussed this specific thing, but I almost took it as you wanted to write the more formulaic type of movie because you felt like that might be something that is purchased.
Yeah.
So, if you truly feel like that, I don't know. Part of me feels like you're trying to game the system to some extent. Part of me feels like you're trying to get the foot in. Maybe the two are not mutually exclusive, but I think it's hard to do that and not have your heart in it, because I feel like the people who are writing by the book, act 1, act 2, act 3, and got to hit all these different points, they're probably still trying to write a movie that means something to them.
Right.
And I just don't know if that's possible. But anyway, I guess the point I was trying to make is that, to what end? If it's just an exercise to show that you can do this, then that's really rough. But if you feel like you're getting a better chance of selling it or winning a competition or doing something, maybe it's worth it.
Well, this is, I think, touching on things that were unresolved 2 episodes ago, which is, or at least one of them is that I don't think that any of my scripts are necessarily meant to be, they're meant to be filmed and not necessarily to win a competition. Even though I submit them to competitions, that I think is where my masochism is, that maybe I keep thinking, even though this isn't written in a way that a reader may accept it, it is written in a way that would look good on the screen.
Mm.
So there we are. I think, maybe the first step is to get my mind aligned with what my goal is, with no expectation of achieving anything else but that goal.
Okay.
I just want to write movies that I like. I'll still submit them, right? Because I keep thinking that there's going to be that reader who's like me and can recognize, like, this would look good on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe there are things in the script that, a more seasoned professional screenwriter would have done differently because they know they need to communicate things differently or whatever. But if the story is good, they'll move it up the chain. Like, if they can visualize it. There you go. What are your thoughts, Brian?
Listen, if you're, this is where I was the 2 episodes ago. Mm-hmm. So, I'm more than behind this idea of writing something that you enjoy writing, writing for yourself, because I think that's going to be the most interesting read.
Yeah.
I guess I have 2 questions.
All right.
And one of them is extremely specific.
Yes.
You had me do a very, very tiny amount of homework. Is that factoring into anything we're talking about?
We're going to transition to that.
Okay. And the second thing is, we've talked about, you have a bunch of story ideas. Maybe they're not necessarily fitting into last week's discussion per se, but maybe they're more in line with, what you actually want to write. And then maybe it's not following a traditional structure or whatnot. So are any of those candidates for what you want to do next? Because if we're going to break this down, I'm completely supportive of whatever you want to do, because you got to write it. You got to do the work, just like I said last time. My part is a little bit more enjoyable and certainly a lot easier than yours. So I'm going to back whichever way you want to go.
All right. Well, I'm going to need more time then to think about that.
Okay.
The crazy part of me is thinking we need to make this a bi-weekly thing, at least in the beginning of season 2, just so I can understand where my heart is.
I don't mind having these short episodes and just talking it over too.
Let's go in that direction then. So I don't have an answer for you, Brian, because I I think I could still go both ways based on what we're about to talk about, because I have actually been thinking about it. Like, okay, if I had to write something from scratch, no iconic scenes or anything in my mind, nothing I'm emotionally attached to, and then also thinking, what would a screenplay reader or a script reader, what would they enjoy? And then also thinking about, like, okay, well, what is the political climate and all of that, right? I kind of have a story that might work. See, the thing is, as I thought about it more, I started to have, like, iconic scenes within this terrible project, right? Like, oh, that would be interesting if I could get to that point, right? But it's also just like, it's like climbing Everest, you know? It's like, it's not something I want to do. I have no desire to climb Everest, right? But if I got to the top of Everest, I wouldn't say, like, this was a small achievement. I wouldn't say that I didn't enjoy being on top of Everest. I just don't want to do the climbing. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're kind of delving into philosophy here, but okay. Well, I think, I don't know if we can go any further in this part of the conversation. I just need to think about it more.
You don't want to just listen? What would probably happen is we'd end our conversation and have the deeper conversation next. You want to just keep going? You can always cut if you don't want to.
What's the deeper conversation?
Well, I mean, you've just mentioned that you've got this iconic thing, right? This iconic scene,
right?
But if you follow the structure, it would be really difficult to get there. So what is the difference between the way that you're supposed to get there and the way, if you wanted to have that scene, is there another way to get there?
And have a good story that I care about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Here's the problem, Brian, is I'm starting to care about the crappy
I feel like we're
story.
talking around things.
Yeah, okay, maybe.
Do you want to talk more specifically? Do you want to tell me what this thing is?
Well, I do, but it ties into the video, the homework. Okay. So let's just do that. Let's go over the homework. Here's what I'm going to do. I know, so the way our our ramshackle MacGyver setup works here, everybody, is that Brian can't see what I'm showing to you, people. We have yet to figure that out, but whatever. So, Brian, here's what I need you to do. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video. Okay. It's going to be silent so that we can avoid any copyright strikes or whatever, even though the video I'm playing is on someone else's YouTube page who obviously stole it from some... I guess I could do that as well. Too much work, Brian.
Too much work.
And I'm just going to kind of like skip through it really fast because it's not important to listen to everything. So I'm just going to kind of clip through. So you're just going to listen to me narrate for a minute or so, Brian.
All right.
Okay. So this is a music video for the, I don't know, who is he, a DJ? Like some guy named Uncle, Unkle, and featuring Thom Yorke from Radiohead. And it's called Rabbit in Your Headlights. So basically, let me just get this playing. So it starts off with, we're watching this guy in like a heavy coat, and he's walking in a tunnel, and so I think it's in London or England somewhere, and he's getting hit by these cars, and he's obviously like a crazy homeless person, and he's muttering to himself. Maybe, I mean, who knows if he's seeing things, but he's just kind of like a discarded person. And as the video continues, people just keep hitting him. He's, just like this, the detritus of society. But it looks like he's working towards something. Like maybe whatever he's saying makes sense to him. And then we get to the end of the video where there's a car that looks like it's going to be the car that kills him because it gets an extra focus. And in the last moment, this homeless guy smiles to himself, and he smashes the car while he's standing still, instead of the car smashing him. So when I saw this, let me just get us back up here. So when I saw this video, who knows how many years ago, I thought, I've always loved the Radiohead videos because they've always had, like an artistic focus that I don't know if it necessarily matched up with the music or the the lyrics of the songs, but they always had, like, you could watch the videos without listening to the music and they would still have a special meaning. And so this video, I know it's not a Radiohead video. I wondered, what is the story here? What are they saying? And I thought, I kind of formulated something, but I talked to other people to find out what they thought, and they didn't know what it meant. And the idea that I had was that these crazy people that you see on the streets who are muttering to themselves, talking to invisible figures, whatever it may be, that perhaps they are working on like almost like solving a puzzle, that if they can find the solution, it will elevate them or give them, in simple terms, give them some kind of power. Mm-hmm. And that's what I got from this, that this guy in the last moment solved his puzzle, and it elevated him beyond what he is, just, elevated him beyond humanity. And so, that was always an idea I wanted to, like, stretch out beyond this video. And so I thought, okay, well, if I'm forced to come up with an idea for this script, let me, kind of cheat a little bit and fall back on this. So
it's not cheating.
I think it's cheating a little bit.
Well, you're basing it on your interpretation of something that you saw. So it's not like they said that this is what it is.
Totally. I get it.
Not cheat.
So first things first, Brian, what do you think? Do you think what is your interpretation of the video, and what do you think of my interpretation?
I think your interpretation makes a lot of sense. I felt like he had reached something in his head, some sort of mental. I didn't feel necessarily that it was like he had reached a higher plane.
Sure.
But I felt like he was definitely, he was going through his life, kind of living a different reality. And when the two realities, collide, is like when he has a deeper understanding, and then the two realities literally will clash, and he will beat, the reality that's been beating him down. So I think I was similar in terms of my interpretation of yours. I think what you're saying, just the way you described it already sounds a little bit more cinematic. Like, I can see that, you're going to go from the mild-mannered guy who gets somehow introduced to something or some idea that starts festering in his mind, and then something happens and he starts to, lose touch with his family and friends and kind of transition to this person before he reaches this place, where
interesting.
That's what I was thinking.
Close, but I didn't think of starting where he's a normal guy.
Right. I thought it'd be neat to see the kind of the germ of it, whatever it was that started it. And I mean, he can even meet with other people, that are having the same experience or similar experiences or whatnot. I think that there's a lot more to your backstory than there's in the video. Which makes it kind of a cool idea, actually. I like the idea.
Okay. So here's the story that I had in my mind, based on this video. It was going to be a female protagonist who has, and this is all kind of spitballing. I didn't write any of this down. I was just trying to add, the textures by adding other characters around her. So, let me just tell you the main part. So she is like a social worker who helps or who works with, we'll say, people who live on Skid Row, people who have mental issues, drug abuse issues, mainly the homeless.
Yeah.
And they are all very similar to the guy in this video, talking to themselves, flailing about. And this woman is married, and I don't know, maybe they have a kid. I'm not sure. In any event, this woman, I don't know how yet, she gets it into her mind that these people, while we think that they're crazy, she has basically the same theory that I have, that these people are, they're not all just people who have mental issues. They seem to be working towards something. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if she works at maybe a clinic that allows you to observe people, take them in and have them stay there. But basically, she connects with the, a homeless guy. We'll call him Jim. And in my mind, he was a black guy. And it's very hard to communicate with him at first. Like, he doesn't seem to understand what the commands that she's giving him, and she can't understand what he's trying to communicate to her. And that, as the movie continues, she continues to, I don't know, research or find more evidence that, there are people who support her theory. She starts trying to get him to like move things telepathically. Right. Anyway, and so I mean, there are a lot of gaps in my what I see in this story. But so one iconic scene is that here she is, and maybe it's towards the middle of the movie. She's trying to, she's like thinking she's going to give up, right? She keeps telling the Jim, hey, move this glass. And maybe she's getting frustrated, and you can tell he's getting agitated too. And she, she's about to leave. Like, maybe she turns to like turn on all of the lights again, right? Yeah. And when she turns, the glasses like shatters on the wall next to her. And she doesn't know if he threw it or he moved it mentally. Right. Right. So there you go. I think that's a nice iconic scene, right? It's suddenly starting to bring the movie into the metaphysical, Mm-hmm. Anyway, it does turn out, so I don't know how it ends exactly. I don't know if everyone dies. But it does turn out that he, like this gentleman in this video, does find his solution. Maybe he's still, you can't communicate with him, and he can't communicate with her, but he's developed like these, mental powers, and he either like collapses the building, like maybe there's some kind of like a fire in a nearby high rise or something, right? And he's like bracing it with his mental powers to keep it from collapsing so people can get out. And then, our protagonist, she is resolved because she's like, I knew it, right? Like, I'm not crazy too, basically. Like, like maybe, the her social circle is telling her, you're crazy for thinking that this is a thing, right? Give it up. Like, you have a family or whatever, right? And when she has her discovery, her breakthrough, maybe she dies in this fire because the Jim isn't able to hold up the building anymore or something like that, right? And then we end with like her husband getting her stuff from the clinic or wherever she works, and because he was very involved in what she was doing, even though he didn't approve of it and he didn't agree with it, he didn't believe it, like as he's leaving, like some crazy homeless lady mutters something under her breath, as she walks past him, and he looks back at her like, what if my wife was right or whatever? And then that's how the movie ends, right? Yeah. So anyway, so there we are. And I was thinking, okay, so that's kind of a flat movie with a very small cast. What else can we do to add a little more texture to Sally? We'll just call her Sally, right? Maybe she has a mother with dementia, right? Or like advanced Alzheimer's. And she always thought, like, you know what, I know my mom is still in there, and, we need to find a way to communicate with her or something, right? Like her...
It could have drove her into the profession.
That's what I mean. Sure, something, right? Like she... maybe the mother wasn't necessarily trying to become a superhero or whatever this plot is, just that, she was always trying to, like, she never thought that her mother was gone. Like, she just thought her mother was communicating in another way, kind of thing.
That she couldn't understand.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of merit to it. When you were talking about it, a couple things occurred to me. When she's having those early discussions, with Jim or whomever, I'm guessing if she's a social worker, she's seeing a lot of people. Yeah. One of the things that could happen is what sounds like nonsense to us, she starts to see or recognize patterns. And so, where everyone just hears the same kind of silly things, she starts to hear specific things from specific people, and how could they possibly be saying the same thing? Maybe she goes to different clinics, so they're not all like necessarily geographically there, so they could hear each other, but they're saying things that, oh, why would they say that? And as she starts to investigate it more and more, she starts to understand maybe there's something to it. She starts to put, her version of logic to it. So I think that's kind of a cool idea. And then the kind of the broader thing that I was thinking about is that this is almost like telling an origin story but it's not about the person who's becoming the hero. It's about the person who's observing someone becoming a hero, which is very different. You know what I mean? Because typically you would go with that guy and you would be there for him and you would experience everything, versus what she's doing. She's trying to see what's happening to all these people. And Jim's just an example of it, you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily about Jim. It's about Sally and her understanding as you know, as someone who's a form for the audience, you know. So whatever she discovers, we get to discover and think about our world and these people living in it, and it's a different understanding of that. So I think that's kind of interesting.
It's the Bryce Dallas Howard story from Glass.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's her origin story.
What was it, Glass? It was Glass. No, was it Glass? The last one was Glass? Yeah. Terrible.
What was the one before that?
The good
With
one
James
was
McAvoy. It was
that was Split.
Much
Better movie.
Right.
Yeah. So it'd be like the Bryce Howard movie or about that character that I would care about.
Right. Yeah.
That was terrible.
Totally.
But I also was thinking, you know, at the end, you know, where maybe instead of her dying,
she's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm crazy by society standards. Like, no one wants to believe her.
It's starting to, you know, but you hear those same phrases that we heard early in the movie. You know, now she's starting to say them, like she's starting to make the realization, but she's like kind of, you know, she's not acceptable by.
See, that's the thing, Brian. That's where the movie, I can tell, this is how I could tell I started to like this story, because I was taking it into the non-commercial territory and the more like indie, like independent market, where like she dies and it's all very like gritty and harsh, and that's life, everybody. Yeah. Independent. What you're doing is you're making it into like a very commercial, like, we can turn this into a franchise.
Exactly.
You know, she lives, and then
Sally
she's going to be in the sequel. They're going to bring her out. All right, Sally.
Be a fire starter.
That's what I'm saying. No, the generals come in.
Drew Barrymore comes and plays her.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
It's just an Act 3 thing, dude. You can still do whatever you want in Act 1 and 2. Done.
Yeah. The ending, that's the thing that people, you know, that's what they leave with, though, man, you know?
I hear you.
All right,
Did she die? Was she the old woman all of a sudden?
Yeah, hey.
The time travel movie. Just didn't know you were watching one.
Anyway.
Regardless, I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, it's just enough to, like, start the process, right? But it's going to be like an old engine that you're just trying to rebuilding and trying to get to work. Just cranking it, you know? Whereas, you know, with Epitaph, I was like, oh, man, let's hit the ground running.
Right.
And so, I don't know, man. I don't know if I have that in me. At least not for season 2. I could see, like, maybe season 5, you know? I'm just saying.
It could germinate over another project. You know,
that's what I'm saying. No, totally. I feel like as we start doing this, and as I still devote time to make something happen with the previous projects, there will be overlap. You know?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know, 1 week will be, let's catch up on what's going on with the different projects. The next week, pages.
Juggling.
Whatever.
Just like a paid writer would do.
Yeah. But not paid writer.
Be sure to look for us in the next channel. Not a paid writer.
Not a paid writer.
But doing all the work.
No, that's how I feel in my day job. Oh.
You get paid for that.
Well, still doing all the work. Thankfully, none of my coworkers watch this show. So, all right, Brian. Well, that's all I wanted to say about this. I'm still ambivalent on the direction.
So I would, you know, we usually finish up our recording, and again, I would start talking to you about other things. So I'm just going to say it now. So you have mentioned in the past you have other ideas that are somewhat formed in your head. You have the movies, you have the stories you want to tell, but they may not be fitting the mold of what we talked about for season 2. Would there be something more appropriate for this next season that you do want to tell, that's going to be something you care about?
Well, okay. I mean, I'll say several months ago, in the height of Epitaph, I was already thinking about season 2, and I was thinking, man, this is going so well that I could finish like the trilogy I had in mind. And I was just thinking, okay, well, how do we acclimate audiences? Let's say if we did do, let's say finish my Dragon trilogy. How do we acclimate them, right? Like we'd have to go over, we'll say episode 1 of that trilogy first, right? Even though it's done, like maybe there are things we can touch up before we go into the next 2 movies, right? So there's that. I think really that's all I have. That's all I was thinking about, Brian.
So if you were to do that, do you feel like, I mean, you couldn't really do the next step of trying to submit a sequel, right?
Oh, right. Absolutely.
So it'd really be more for yourself and
just to have it, just to say,
just to have it.
Imagine if I did, let's say on the off chance I was able to sit down with a producer who was looking for a big budget action movie like this, right?
Yeah.
And if I was able to tell him, look, I have all 3 movies already written. To me, that would be valuable to a producer. Like if he liked the first idea, like the first part of it, to know that there's, a franchise already set up. I mean, you could even do like a Lord of the Rings thing, have the exact same cast. I feel like
all 3 at the same time.
Well, yeah, I feel like, shooting one movie, you could probably, I mean, if you are an efficient director, right, you could probably get 3 movies out of, one movie.
It's way cheaper.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. Of course. Permitting and all that fun stuff and getting the actors availability.
Yeah, you don't have people like trying to hold production hostage because like, oh, the first movie was so popular, you got to pay me more now.
Money. Yeah. Well, to that end, you've always envisioned Epitaph as a trilogy as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, no.
Okay.
The other 2 things I just like threw out there because I was like, why not? Everything is like sequels and trilogies and stuff. Franchise. That's what all the studios want. They want a franchise. I mean, you look at like, The Mummy with Tom Cruise. Yeah. It's like the fact that that's Universal, right?
Yeah. Right.
The fact that they're trying to make a monster movie world or universe.
Right.
That's like, come on, you guys are just like, what IPs do we control? We're doing that.
Got
Paramount.
The Mummy and Frankenstein. Yes. I was just kidding.
Exactly, dude. It's.
Dude, that's what you should do. You should submit your next thing as part 3. People are like, what? Where are parts 1 and 2? I love this. I want to hear the rest of it. That's what you should do. No one does that.
You know what? I'm willing to do that, Brian. I'm willing to do that.
It's like Star Wars. Yeah, that's part 4.
Yeah.
Sure. Was it originally? Sure it was.
I
don't think that was on the initial crawl. Yeah. It was there. Part 4. I got lots of these.
Yeah. I would be willing to do that. I don't I don't know if my part 3 would necessarily stack up though. Like it's not a movie where like, even though Star Wars part 4,
yeah.
It still felt like a part 1, right? Like all of the proper foundations were being built.
Wouldn't that be so funny? You just come in with Empire. Who are these people? What's happening right now?
That's the thing.
Guess you got to read part 1.
I guess you got to buy it.
Crap, I guess I got to write it. That would be a writing assignment worth doing.
Oh, hell yeah.
And really interesting.
Imagine if they said, oh, yeah, send it over tomorrow. Like, fudge.
My computer crashed. Give me about a week.
Yeah, right.
That'd be funny. All right. Well, I mean, if that's where you want to go, and touch up the first project and then go into 2 and 3, we can do that.
I'll tell you what.
If you want to go back to your second one, I'm trying to, because you're not mentioning titles, I'm not going to either.
Oh, no, go ahead. What's the second one? Corina?
Yeah. if you want to go back to Karina and
That is my second one, isn't it? Jeez.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
And you know, I don't know if we really need to work on that one. That one's pretty tight.
Look at
You know what I mean?
Someone's
No,
emotionally attached.
it's true. But I would give it a true read. Look, I was emotionally attached to Epitaph, and you saw what I did in the first something pages, whatever it was, 25 pages.
I don't think you were that emotionally attached.
Well, I was because I went through the journey with you, and I know what
Well,
went
no,
into
I
every
get-
scene. So I mean, maybe
That's
it wasn't
different.
my love of the topic.
Yeah.
I feel like you put more heart into the other one because it feels like it's more of a personal story. So I mean, of course,
Right.
I'm going to be more emotionally attached to
And
it.
you're in the movie as well. Let's let's
Oh
not
no,
forget
just some
that.
guy named Brian. That's not even how I spell my name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
but I'm
legal
totally a different
reasons,
guy.
Brian is not in the script.
That's right.
Future producers, so we don't have to pay him anything.
Kickback. What was that?
Oh yeah.
Royalty, huh? Someone said something. All right. Well, I'm open to doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah, give me another way to, you and I will probably have to talk offline to kind of like sort it out. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can make this decision on my own.
Happy to, man. Cool. Still a fun episode.
Yeah, it was good. Good to talk.
Did you find it fun? If you did, please like and subscribe and tell one other person. Just one, though.
Just one. Just one. I would be happy if they just liked it, to be
Yeah.
honest. You know,
Like
baby
or
steps.
subscribe or leave a comment or do all three. Those are your only choices.
Yeah, if you're an overachiever,
Yeah, exactly.
if you're extra. All right, that's it. We'll see you in the next episode.
Peace.
War.